There is a misconception of the level of talent that we're looking for within our industry. Look at the technology that the guys and girls are asked to look after in their working day. It's high-spec stuff, and it's interesting and it's rewarding for people who get into it.
Welcome to this week's MTD podcast, How to Become an Industry Leader. I'm Gio Albanese, hosting today's show, a passionate engineer and a proud member of the MTD team. I'm really excited today because I'm joined by three friends and industry leaders within the UK engineering sector. We have something in common too. We all did our engineering apprenticeship together at North Warwickshire Engineering College in Nuneaton many years ago. We will be discussing our journey from way back then and learning all about the latest technology that's available now. We will also get their advice on how to succeed within our great industry. If you're just starting out as an apprentice or you're the owner or CEO of a company yourself, stay tuned to this podcast. So let's introduce our guests. Firstly, Kevin Ward, owner and managing director of Brown Holmes. How are you, Kev?
Oh, good, thanks, Gio. Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today, Kev. It's an absolute pleasure. If you've not heard of Brown Holmes, they supply some of the most bespoke and specialised work welding solutions within our industry, predominantly for leading aerospace companies. Next up, the person that's responsible for getting me into engineering sales is the sales director of the Engineering Technology Group, Mr. Steve Brown. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, mate. You all right?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Great having you on the podcast today, my friend.
No, I'm excited.
And last but not least, I've known this person nearly all of my life from school, and we did our engineering apprenticeship together also. He's been responsible for some pretty bad hangovers over the years. Richard Turner, General Manager, Okuma Products at NCMT. How's it going, Rich?
Hi, Gio. How you doing?
Very well, thanks, my friend. Well, guys, it's an absolute pleasure for you guys to join us now. I think this is absolutely brilliant. Got loads and loads of questions and loads of stuff that we can discuss. But let's start at the very beginning, where it all started for us all. And this time, Rich, I'm going to start with you. Tell our audience why you got into engineering from back then and about your journey up to this day.
Well, it first started out really when I was at school, in the same school as you were at. And it was actually my girlfriend's father at the time. He was working in a small engineering firm, and I was looking for a 2-week work placement for some work experience. So he took me in. I went and started to learn a little bit about the engineering, the basics, filing, sawing, etc. But during that time, he then said to me he would offer me an apprenticeship. So obviously GCSEs were around the corner. So that was it really. So from that point onwards, I literally concentrated on going straight into that apprenticeship with this small engineering firm.
And Rick, tell us about your journey since college. You've progressed now to General Manager at NCMT for the Okuma Products, but what did your journey consist of?
Drinking and lots of other things. Basically, I did this apprenticeship with this small engineering firm called Axis Engineering, which was based in Nuneaton. From that point onwards, as soon as I finished it, though, I did take a small turn. And when I say a small turn, you might think it's a large one, actually. I became a nurse for a year. So it's a little bit outside the box, that one. After doing that, it was a great job, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to do something slightly different. And from there, I then changed again, did a small stint at doing some fruit and veg and flower delivery. And then after this point, I then thought to myself, you know what? My heart is still in the engineering. So I went straight back to it. And then, I've traveled through various different companies, subcontractors, working for people that do subcontract work for aerospace or automotive, even to the point where I moved to Dublin and I worked for Pratt & Whitney Airmotive, so overhauling Pratt & Whitney aerospace engines, and then eventually ending up at NCMT for the machine tool industry. So now, looking after a particular product, heading up that department and, helping our company promote the Okuma products.
Well, we'll touch upon all of the products during this podcast that you offer, Rich, and discuss the solutions that you offer also. Steve, you took a similar path to Rich. Tell our audience about your journey too.
Yeah, so when I finished, I was based in Hinckley. So when I finished college, I'd always wanted to get into engineering, but more on a design front. So I can remember North Warwickshire had these open days where you go and you have a walk round, and looking back now, I know that it was like just a lad's day out to walk around and have a look. But I made the mistake of listening to my mum. She took me there, and I was dressed in a full suit, shirt and tie, walking around with my mum, where everybody else were there in jeans and t-shirts, laughing at the teachers, looking at him, and so forth. So if there's a lesson for anybody when you're going to have these inductions, for God's sake, don't let your mum dress you and don't walk around. That sort of like set it out for me. If you can remember, down the bottom of the college, as you go down to the float with the machine shop all down the bottom, and as soon as I walked in there, really, that's what turned it for me and wanted me to get involved with physically wanting to get onto the machines. It looked quite a satisfactory trade, isn't it? Take a block of metal and turn it into a plumb box. So that's what set the stall out for myself to get into engineering, and took a similar path to Richard. I didn't do any nursing. Carried on all the way through as to where we are today.
Yeah, and where are you today, Steve? Can you tell our audience, a little bit about your role at ETG?
Yeah, so where I am today is we're manifested from leaving college. I went onto the shop for a company called Marrow Engineering Press Tools in Coventry. Leaped from there into an applications role at Hardinge, and then my immediate boss now, Martin Doyle, who's the owner of ETG, purchased Hardinge, the distribution. So that means I offset and jumped into ETG, and from product development through to product management, I manifested and ended up in sales. So and things just grow, doesn't it? During these climates, we've pulled all sources together. So I look after the group now in terms of people. So the role has changed in terms that I deal, probably similar to Kevin and Richard, deal with more people problems every day than actually getting excited to talking about machines.
Well, we're going to be touching upon your technology that you've got to offer as well, Steve, and about your company and solutions. And technology is a big focus of this podcast, as well as kind of the journey and how you've got to where you've got now. Kev, you actually was at the college a few years before Rich, Steve, and I.
Thanks for that.
Just a few years, Kev. Why did you take this path? What inspired you, Kev?
I think the inspiration really come from my dad. My dad was in manufacturing and he was an apprentice himself. But by the time I got towards 16, I think I was fed up with school life. I didn't distinguish myself fantastically at school, other than not academically. Sporting wise was my true love, but there's a few failures on that front. But yeah, long story short, really, I applied for a number of apprenticeships in the Tamworth area, which there weren't many, but Birmingham was the real capture there. People like Cincinnati Millicron back in them days, and GKN down the Spicers. Probably some of you guys have not even heard of those now. But I ended up at Brown Holmes basically. It's just before my 17th birthday. Started as an indentured apprentice, 5-year apprenticeship back in them days, and that's where the story began, really. 42 years later, I'm still there. I'm still pretty.
Well, you're the owner of the company now, Kev, and one of the managing directors. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what Brown and Holmes actually offer? I mean, it's quite a wide variety of products, but specifically about the bespoke solutions.
Yeah, we're a design and manufacture outfit. I mean, we operate from Tamworth, 2 sites now, 2 18,000 square foot sites. We've got a dedicated assembly and inspection area for all the equipment that we produce and put together. We're supplying equipment around the world still in these hard pressurised times. We pride ourselves on our own apprenticeship scheme. We've got 5 guys currently in the early first 2 years of their apprenticeships, and we've got a couple of guys who are towards the end of their apprenticeship. So yeah, I mean, Brown Holmes, we specialise in work holding, manual handling equipment, special purpose machinery. We front a number of products, including robotics, indexing tables, steady rest, and anything that's got synergy with our work holding product. We can supply a solution, really, Gio.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm looking forward to going to a deep dive into some of the products. I mean, between us now, we have it's really scary. We have over 100 years experience in engineering. We've seen, all of us, we've seen a lot of change and evolution over the years. For me now, I think it's important to change the perception of engineering for the young students coming into the industry. There still seems to be a misconception still that being on the shop floor doing a mechanical engineering apprenticeship is a dead-end job to a certain degree. And a lot of the students that I've personally spoken to just want to get straight into design before they know how to manufacture a component. Guys, do you agree? And do you think that apprenticeships are still important nowadays? I know you've just mentioned you've actually got an apprenticeship school, Kev, so that's obviously definitely a yes from you. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So I think it's really important. You know, I think if you go back just a few years, apprenticeships seemed to die off. You know, there wasn't that incentive there for the companies to start putting them through. But, you know, of recent, there's been more of a push now to try and get apprentices on board from the government. And I think it's really working well. We focused on it now in our company for probably 6 or 7 years now, and we've been pushing them through each and every year. And to be honest with you, some of them now, they're fantastic. They've come out their time. They're now working as a true employee, and they are a real benefit. And the fact is, you can nurture them to become the perfect employee from the beginning, and that's one of the main benefits of it. They're not bringing traits or things that they've got from other companies into your company. They're being nurtured to how you want them to be.
So moulding them really, Rich. And what do you think about what I said about kind of how important is it that they actually learn still on mechanical equipment, you know, manual equipment? Do you still think that that's important?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's, you know, in our industry, in my industry, with the machine tool industry, with it now, the technology being so advanced, and it's all CNC. So we don't have the manual equipment in house. So having that at the college, you know, that gives them that benefit. You know, it gives them the manual lathes, the bench work, welding, and it gives them a good grounding before they come in house and start to learn the higher technology.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. Steve, what about you, mate? I mean, I've actually seen some of your apprentices at ETG with Chloe, for example, Steve.
Yeah, I echo what Richard says, really. You know, the biggest thing is obviously moulding them into something that fits into your own business. So we work obviously closely. We supply the manual machines and everything that's up at Incom in Marches. The circa 2,000 apprentices a year go through their facility. So to see for someone to put a block of material in a vise and let it fly out, that's where they have to learn, isn't it? You know, so to take that experience into a machine tool, and certainly from the level of the equipment that ourselves and Richard supply, they need to know the basics and appreciate the engineering aspect. So yeah, it's a big focus for us. It's good, really rewarding to see them grow through the business. You know, when they join you from leaving the college or working off site, you know, they've got an idea that I want to be in, in applications, in service. You know, they tend to wander in different directions. So Chloe's finished up now with us as a product manager for a number of products. So yeah, it's really quite rewarding to see them grow through the business.
Yeah, and I echo both of your views there as well. And Kevin, can you tell us about your apprenticeship school that you've actually set up on site at Brown Holmes?
Yeah, we've always run apprentices, but to be honest, it depends on the year we're in at the time and the calibre of people that there are out there that we're able to attract. But we've things are a lot better, I think, than they were, well, perhaps 5-10 years previous and time before. But there's a lot more support. There's a lot more people recognising that our industry needs young talent, and we're seeing more of that young talent being directed to the industry, certainly locally through the local schools and the colleges, which is good because it wasn't there before. But reiterating what Rich and Steve have just said, that I think there is a misconception of the level of talent that we're looking for within our industry, because you look at the technology that the guys and girls are asked to look after in their working day. It's high spec stuff, and it's interesting and it's rewarding for people who get into it.
Yeah, again, absolutely 100%. I couldn't agree more. And we all started off on them manual machines. And for me personally, I think that I wouldn't have been able to have progressed if I didn't start off on them manual machines. Now, firstly, what was your favourite machines from college? And secondly, tell us now about some of the technology that you offer and why it's so important, why engineers need to embrace it. I'll start with you this time, Steve.
Right. So my favourite machine going back to college, I actually can't remember what it was called, but it was the one. It was like the horizontal arbor. You know, you had to put all the on and the face and slot drills and stuff. I used to love working them, and we had to make some. I can't remember what they were, like some clamping blocks or something. So yeah,
like a steps block, wasn't it?
They were my favourite machines because I always kept on the lathe. I was no good because I kept leaving the vice handle up and they didn't appreciate it. Plus the mills were closer to the sandwich shop, which worked well. So going through, obviously, what was your next question?
So we obviously started on that kind of technology, and CNC was just coming into play, really. But obviously things have moved a long way since then, and on all three of you and at your companies, you're providing now state of the art technology. And why now more than ever is it so important that engineers embrace it, and what solutions do you offer, Steve?
Well, the big word at the minute is all Industry 4, isn't it? It's all lights out, running, and everything else. So the generation that are coming through now, everything's app based, isn't it? So if you've not got an app on your machine, the guys can't run it. So that's the level of technology gone into the machines. I mean, I'm going back from when I worked in applications to where they are now. It's tenfold. If I was to stand in front of a machine now, you don't even get to see the code because there's all these user interfaces that are put in front of you. Automation was always as a bolt-on, but it tends to be quite standard now. In the same way that you can't seem to live without your phone, business owners can't seem to live without knowing what the machines are doing. So they can look at the phones, can't they, and see the machines actually cutting. They get notifications if it's down, if the coolant's not right, the machine's at the wrong temperature. So, with solutions that that all of us are offering in different forms, maybe it's tenfold, isn't it? And I think it's just going to keep accelerating to meet what our customers are asking us for.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a really good point as well that I think that we can touch upon a bit later on in this podcast. I believe that COVID has definitely propelled digitalisation in Industry 4.0 within our industry, but across a lot of sectors, to be fair. Rich, what about you? What was your favourite manual machine, and what solutions do you offer now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we went to college together. We were at the same college. I mean, I don't know if you can remember, but so far through my apprenticeship, I actually changed college. I changed to the Butts Technical College a bit so far down the line. And that was down to my employer. He wanted me to have more machine exposure. And the one with the Butts, they also tied it in with Jaguar. So they had their place where they had all the machines. So I used to do a week in Jaguar and then a day release after that into the Butts College. But in there, the machines were a slightly more high tech, but I still really liked the Colchester student. That's the good old fashioned manual lathe. You couldn't go wrong with it. Doing screw cutting on that was always a bit hair raising. But that was one of my favourite machines. If going back, and as you say, as time progresses and you look at where we are now with the current technology, it's come a long way. In theory, it's a short time. I know we're getting on, but in theory, it's quite a short time for the amount of the technology has come on from that point. You look at what the industry's got now, as you say, with Industry 4, I sort of echo what Steve's saying with that as well. It's all app-based things, that's what we see this next generation doing. They want things to be easy. And going back to the apprenticeship side of things, one of our apprentices that we've put through the system, he's actually now come out the other end and he's employed as a software developer in-house in our place. So he's there now creating apps that we put on our machines.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant, Rita. Can you tell us a bit more about that? That's what. So the apps. It's like basically simplification, isn't it, Richard?
Yeah. So he worked in C plus, writing in C basically. So basically, we create our own apps to stick on the machine to help operators out in the field. Give them some insights into to make things like loading in the tool offsets and taking them out again, make it a little bit easier. So it's basically pushes of buttons and it saves it against a program name, for instance. So he's there creating these apps, making sure everything works, testing it out on machines, and then it's then sold on to the customer, and they've got a bespoke app written for them on their machine.
So I wouldn't mind taking a closer look at that one day, Rich, if that's okay. Kev, what about you, Kev? And can you tell us, a little bit about the products that you offer too, please?
Yeah, with respect to Nuneaton, I did most of my machining work at Tamworth College within my ONC, but on the HNC, really, and my kids would laugh at this answer, knowing my current IT capabilities. But yeah, my age group, we were in the first module that North Warwickshire College offered on IT, which is giving my age away. But yeah, it was incredibly interesting and new back then, information technology, and I think back to the old DOS operating systems and early CNCs, which ticker tape machines and whatever. But it was really, really exciting looking back, to be honest, and to be involved at that level, because there weren't many other people outside of manufacturing, or certainly the course I was doing, into computers at that stage. So it was really good.
And we touched upon that you guys, none of you just sell a product, really. You sell a solution. Can you explain to our audience, what's the difference? Because, explain what the difference is between being a solution provider and a product provider. I don't know who wants to go first on that. Kev?
A solution provider, yeah. For us, it's normally getting a new requirement, whether it be a component that needs machining, welding, assembling, and really giving the customer optimum production solution to be able to hold the part accurately, to repeat accurately, and to take away all their problems, basically, from a raw component to a finished component. And we see that through all the way from design concept all the way through supporting the product until it's up and running on the shop floor.
Yeah, and what obstacles do you all overcome? I mean, Steve and Rich, from a machine tool perspective, you don't just sell the machine tool, and obviously, what obstacles do you need to overcome, and why can it be so difficult sometimes to change mindsets and to get people to embrace some of this latest technology? Steve?
Well, the stumbling blocks that to be frank about it, that you come across is not really on the engineering side. As you already alluded to, ourselves and Richard are quite aligned in what we offer is very similar in terms of a turnkey package. So the stumbling blocks are more so based around what the customer wants out of it. The challenging ones is where you physically look at a part and that's going to take a minute. Then he says, well, actually, I need it in 30 seconds. So it's the engineering side that comes into it, because when the spindle's turning, that's when the customer's earning money. And obviously, he wants that part in and out of his machine accurately and as quick as possible, because that's when he's going to earn more money. So the likes of our business and challenges is that's what we see on the engineering side, which goes all the way back to what we're talking about today. Really, is the need for these engineers to come through, so we can carry on providing that solution going down the line. It never really stops at a turnkey. It's not based on value. It's based on what you're giving to the customer. You can have a 50 grand turnkey, you can have a £5 million one. The word turnkey comes from you're offering a full solution.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, really, Steve. I think that basically, if the return of investment there, the actual price of the turnkey doesn't matter, does it?
No, and that's what when you get into the crux of it, the owner buyers in these larger OEMs, then they're looking at the cost of part. They want to know how much is it going to cost me to make that one part. And that's all they're interested in, which all stems back to price. Rarely, well, it does obviously come into it, particularly how things are at the minute. But it is the engineering side and getting that confidence into the customer that it's doing it today and it will do it tomorrow.
Rich, would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And going back to your comment, about trying to change the mindset, I think that's quite a big one. Sometimes we've got, there's people out there they've got stuck in their ways, where they see a part and they think, well, actually, that's I do that part of it on the lathe and this part on the mill, and you're convincing them that potentially that mill turn could be the solution, but it's complicated sometimes for the people that have been there and they're stuck in their ways. But once you start getting down to it and showing them how easy it is, they then understand. But it's just overcoming that hurdle. You mentioned the hurdle, and that's sometimes that is the battle. But everything else, Steve said, really, I agree with it. We are in the same sort of industry, and turnkey solutions are a big thing at the minute. And one of the real big things since this coronavirus has kicked in now is accelerated the need for automation. That's a big thing at the minute.
Yeah, and that's another really good point. And Kev, I know you offer automated solutions also at Brown Holmes. All three companies do, actually. And I mean, COVID has propelled and accelerated digitalization, automation, Industry 4.0 is part of digitalization. So it's accelerated some of these new emerging technologies that maybe were not coming to the forefront as fast as they should have been, maybe. From an engineering perspective, guys, we've mentioned digitalization and automation, and I think that people have started to finally see the value in both. But where do you see now the landscape of engineering in the future, in the years to come? Kev?
Certainly automation is going to be a massive driver of that. I mean, keeping up with the technology for us all is difficult at most times. But yeah, it's got to be driven, to be honest. But as you quite rightly said, COVID is exposing various weaknesses in traditional methods of manufacture, and I think it'll just help drive the automation requirements of our customers.
Yeah. Rich?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think this automation thing, as I said a moment ago, that is a big driving factor at the minute. We see a lot of companies now, even people that you wouldn't have placed them with it, to be honest, but they're now sort of seeing this and they're saying, actually, you know what, we've got to start pushing this through. Trying to keep social distancing down, trying to minimise the man being there constantly, but also keeping production rates going. That's the main key, is keeping that production rate going. If it's that benefit of it's continuous. It keeps on going. That's the big benefits, and that's where we see the production in it now.
Yeah, Rich, I couldn't agree with you more. Really, I think in this day and age now, I think that automation shouldn't be looked upon as a separate part of the engineering process. I think for any future investments, they should be looking at automation as part of that process, and what automation are they going to be putting onto that machine tool or that process. And I think the same with metrology as well, to be honest. Steve, what kind of solutions do you offer at ETG?
What, in terms of automation?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, it depends on the product. There's a variation of simple pick and place robots. We've got the automation built into the machine. So it really depends upon the customer's need. You can take a Nakamura and it's just got a simple in-feed, out-feed conveyor with some grippers. Or we've got a project going on at the minute that we've got a robot dancing around in the middle. We've got CMM, washing stations, deburring, changing work holding, and all sorts. So there's the comments around automation are quite varied, and it's quite an open subject. But I think we'll all agree that from what packages that we've all delivered in terms of automation, you'll never get customer feedback of, "Oh, I wish I hadn't bought that," or whatever. It's always you get an automation solution into a customer, and it's a no-brainer for them. They're coming back for more. So it is definitely the way forward, and I agree with Richard that the mindset at the minute is just getting customers to see that. That's probably the biggest stumbling block, is getting people to move into it, and once they're into it, they just tend to go tenfold then.
Yeah, never look back. And guys like you, ETG, NCMT, Brown Holmes, you're all kind of heavily invested and geared up for automation now. I keep saying it all the time, and we do at MTD. But I strongly believe that education is the key to breaking down all these barriers to entry, because I still think that there's some engineers out there, like you mentioned, Rich, that they're scared to change their ways. And they're scared to embrace new technology because they don't understand it. And the only way they really understand it is if they know how it works. And the only way they'll know how it works, they get educated on that product. And I think that things like this, and hopefully we can do more videos about what we've discussed today, guys, at a later date. I can't believe that we're running out of time on this particular podcast. But just to finish off and to summarise, really, guys, you've all done really well in the industry, and you've all kind of got to a really high level within our industry. What advice would you give to our listeners, whether they're an apprentice looking to get into the industry or an owner of a company? What advice can you leave them with at the end of this podcast, Rich?
Yeah, well, I think really it's what they've got to see is it's an exciting time in engineering. It's moving fast. Things are expanding rapidly and changing rapidly. And this new era of engineering now is heavily into technology. And I think, people coming into the industry, like an apprentice, they will thoroughly enjoy it, and likewise, people that are already in a business or own a business, they've got to move with these times as well and progress, as we go back to Industry 4, automation, all these sort of comments we've been making. People have got to be not afraid of it. This is what we've got to do. We've got to embrace it and enjoy it, because it is a fantastic and educational bit of the industry, really.
Yeah, we never stop learning, and please let's continue this kind of group, kind of roadshow, if you like. Kev, what would be your advice?
Going forward, anybody certainly setting out on life in engineering is just basically, obviously, strive to get to the highest level and accumulate as much knowledge as you can and experience. But one thing that we must be sure is people don't forget the basics of engineering, going back to apprenticeships as regards, understanding what you're working with and just, there's fundamentals which need as a building block to take on the technology and use it correctly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kev. And Steve, I was on the shop floor, and I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that, you make your own look in a way, but you helped me get into sales because, you know, from bloody hell, about 15 years ago now, Steve, it's gone quickly. But what advice would you give?
What it really is just, I echo what Kevin and Richard says, but just start. Well, first thing is, don't go to college with your mum dressed in a suit. Just the world's your oyster, really. Don't think you can't achieve anything, and just keep aiming for what you want to go for, because where you start off and thinking that you want to end up as a designer, a sales guy, an apps guy, a service, I guarantee as you go through the ropes that you won't finish off doing what you started out to. I'd never thought. I always said to myself, I wouldn't end up in sales, and I have done. You know, I don't think you can plan it out. Just take each opportunity as it comes, and just give it 100%.
Yeah, I couldn't. Again, Steve, Richard, Kev, I can't agree with you more. I think this industry is absolutely full of so much opportunity. It's at the forefront of all technology, and I would advise and recommend to any student to give it a go. Guys, thanks so much for joining us on the MTD podcast. Thanks for our audience for listening to this week's MTD podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed it and it's been insightful for you. I think we definitely 100% need a continuation of this particular podcast and even maybe some videos to come. A massive thanks to our three special guests, Kevin Ward, Steve Brown and Richard Turner. Until next week, the MTD podcast.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.